Okay, welcome everyone. As we learn the Mishna Yomis for Yom Sheni Shel Shabbos Parshas Ekev, we are holding in the third parak of Beitza, with the second and the third Mishnah is sponsored. Le'ili Nishmas Chasi Bashlomo L'Refu Shalema for Yom Moshe Menchai Yisara for the schus of Avram Ben Yom Benish Ben Malki Yehudis and family, sponsored by the Fisher family. Le'ili Nishmas Pasi Bas Rabbi Shalom Ben Avram Alevi Perel Bas Ruvain. Then the Neshama should have a lichtig Gan Eden. And by Yol Kugman and family, and also L'Refu Shalema for my Shver Avigdor Aye Ben Rivka, he should have a L'Refu Shalema B'Sek Sharcha Yisrael. The Mishnah tells us, you see, we can use animals on Yom Tov to shech them, and of course we could cook fish, but they can't be muksa. So if there were traps set before Yom Tov, and we find animals or fish in the traps on Yom Tov, so if they were trapped already from before Yom Tov, so then they're not muksa. But if they were trapped on Yom Tov, then that means before Yom Tov they were still not available. So at the onset of Yom Tov they were not prepared, so they were muksa. And migui this katzoi mein hashmashas, it's katzoi l'kula yuma. Our Mishnah discusses a situation of suffik muksa. You found it in the trap, you don't know if it was caught before or on Yom Tov. So mitzudas chayiv ha'oifedogim, traps of beasts, birds and fish, she'ason me'erev Yom Tov, that you set before Yom Tov, and you found the animal or the fish in the trap on Yom Tov, lo yitol mehem b'Yom Tov, you can't use them, elim ken yodeya shenitzaydu me'erev Yom Tov, unless you know they were trapped from before Yom Tov, because our Mishnah holds, the Tanakama holds, that suffik muktzah is aser. Now, umaisa, now here the Gemara says there's a chsuri mechsra, and the Gemara says that Rabbi Gamliel has an opposing opinion. Rabbi Gamliel says that suffik muktzah is mutter, not to eat it, but at least to move it. And therefore, Maisa ben Nachri Echad, there was a guy, Shehevi Dogim Rabbi Gamliel, that brought fish to Rabbi Gamliel on Yom Tov. Now, he didn't want people to think that he's not taking it because he holds suffik muktzah you can't take. He therefore told people that he didn't accept it because he didn't want to take it from this guy. He didn't want to be indebted to this guy. V'ama mutarinheim, they're mutter. Taisyam says not to eat, but at least to move. There was a different reason I didn't want to take from this guy. I didn't want to be indebted to him. Some people you don't want to be indebted to. Now the next Mishnah discusses a case where you don't need the animal to be eaten on Yom Tov. You have enough food prepared. However, you find that the animal is dying. It's not a treifa, but it's dying. Now, if the animal dies, then it'll become a nevela, and you could lose a $2,000 animal. So you want to shecht it in order that you should be able to shecht it before it dies on its own. It's a big hefsed moment. So the Mishnah says, "Behema mesukenes lo yishchay," an animal that's dangerously ill, you can't shecht it, elim ken yesh shoyish b'yoyim lechel mimena k'zayis sali, unless there's still enough time on Yom Tov to roast a k'zayis of its meat. If you have enough time, so then you're allowed to do it because you want to have some fresh off the grill, So then, and since you have to, in order to have a k'zayis, you have to shech the animal, and it's a tzerich Yom Tov because you could eat a k'zayis, so you could do it. Rabbi Kiva says even if there's no time to roast it, and even if there's no time to cut from a different part of the animal, even if there's only time to have sushi meat, if there's only enough time to take from the place of the shechita a kazayis, and if you're not an istinance to have a raw piece of kazayis, you could still do it to save the $2,000 animal. Rabbi Kiva afilu kazayis chai, even a kazayis of raw meat mebeis tvichasa, where it's already cut by the makom hashchita, even if there's just enough time for that before shkia, you could do it. Now let's say the animal was dying in the field. So you got to bring it on Yom Tov from the field. Now normally you would bring it on a pole or on a stretcher. But to do that is not Ruach Shel Yom Tov. That looks like an Uvda Dechel. So Shchata Batzada, if you had to shecht it in the field, that's where the animal was dying. Lo Yivi'ena Bamoitu Bamoita. You can't bring it on a pole, on a stretcher, because that's an Uvda Dechel. Therefore, you should cut it up and bring it in pieces, so it doesn't look so public. Even though it's a bigger tircha, because you have to make several trips. And I mentioned when we learned this here at Fairways between Mincha and Mariv, I mentioned there's a great lesson over here. And the lesson is that we have to preserve the aura of Yom Tov. To carry from a stretcher, a pole, a whole animal on Yom Tov, that doesn't look Yom Tov-dik. This is something that our generation needs to understand. Our generation needs to understand that we have to preserve the Ruach Shabbos, the Ruach Yom Tov. Coming to shul and finding 50 skateboards and all kinds of boards in front of the shul, and people in a development playing basketball in weekday clothing on Shabbos. That's not Ruach Shabbos. It's certainly not Ruach Shabbos to have a house where there's a goyish nanny and she turns on the television for the kids and they're watching the television on Shabbos and Yom Tov. That's certainly not Ruach Shabbos. There's a Im toshiv mi Shabbos raglecha. If you withhold your feet on Shabbos, you don't run on Shabbos. Right? Asoyis chafatzecha b'yom kachi, to do your normal pursuits on my holy day. You have to preserve the aura of Shabbos. Again, we want to thank you for joining us for this pleasant evening of Torah. Irving, it's nice to have you joining us for the Mishnayos. Again, as we're getting ready to give the Chumash here on Wednesday night, broadcasted hopefully up in South Fallsburg, we do not have a sponsor this week, so we're looking for a sponsor.
What's your sponsorship?
360 718-916-3100, rmmwsi@aol.com. Thank you.
Sponsor.
What?
You have a sponsor. It's my bar mitzvah pressure.
Wow. Irving Fishbaum, Chaver Adaf, for many, 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 many years. Do you know how many years, Irving?
59.
Huh?
59.
No, how many years are you joining this daf?
Oh, this is my fourth cycle.
Fourth cycle, almost 30 years. 25 years for sure. A quarter of a century. So we have.
30.
Huh? Closer to
30.
And Irving has been in. Irving, you've been also in Yaguda, not just in the Swedish shul, right?
Right. No, I wasn't by where the Scottish shul.
You were never in the 14th Avenue Yaguda?
I drove you there, didn't I?
I'm not sure if you only went to the Swedish shul or you were also in the 14th Avenue Yaguda. Do you know? Where you were?
14th Avenue Yaguda, I was there also. Yeah.
Right. So Irving, of course, Saba also was there in the 14th Avenue Yaguda. Okay, so we have a sponsor for this week. Shir, you'll give me the details. You'll text me the details, Irving. Thank you very much for joining us, and have a wonderful, wonderful evening.